I'm just going to say it. Somebody has to be willing to talk about the big problem with the Bad Bunny performance from last night. That something really big went wrong. If we're serious about art, we have to be able to critique things even when they're culturally important. Especially when they're culturally important. Too often when a performance carries a lot of political weight, we stop asking basic questions about craft, about stagecraft, about choreography, about whether or not the thing actually works as a performance. We just assume the message is enough. We don't ask whether or not it's being delivered well. So let's do that, right? Let's talk about the weak spots, and let's talk about the missteps, and let's talk about whether or not the message outweighed the execution. And if you can find any of that, let me know, because I can't. Something did go wrong with this performance, by the way, but it wasn't on that stage. I'll get to what went wrong. From start to finish, this was an immaculate performance. The set design and the spatial thinking and the way bodies were moving through space, nothing felt excessive, nothing felt undercooked. The choreography never screamed for attention, but it never disappeared either. All of it just quietly placed you inside a world. I felt like I knew a place I'd never been to, a place that he was speaking for. Now, as I say, something did go wrong with this performance, but it wasn't with Bad Bunny. You zoom in on that man and you take a look at the breath control, elite. Truly elite. People will underestimate how hard it is to maintain that level of vocal precision while moving like that under pressure. With the choreography and with what's going on in the crowd and with the moment itself, I was very impressed with Kendrick last year for the exact same reason. This was right there with it. And then of course came the guest appearance from Lady Gaga. And guess what? Nothing wrong there either. She came in, she added value. I don't feel like she hijacked the moment. She left, perfectly placed, masterful. So what did go wrong? Near the end, there's this moment, right? The handoff of the Grammy to the young boy. I think that moment went wrong, but for all the right reasons. I think that moment accidentally revealed the most important message of the entire performance. When I went to bed, and then when I woke up, there was a lot of noise online. People were scrambling to say that that boy was Leon Ramos. He wasn't. Apparently, Latin content creators got online to correct that very quickly.
And if you're wondering how so many people confuse this little boy with Liam Ramos, the answer is we don't actually have enough Latino content creators in the political space.
But I do think that that scramble tells you everything. People are often desperate for a very specific kind of political statement. And it's always from the disenfranchised group. They want the big confrontational moment that's essentially for them a piece of entertainment. I think that people essentially wanted the Kendrick versus Drake energy from last year, but just aimed at the state, aimed at the government. I think that expectation misunderstands something very fundamental. For a lot of people of colour everywhere, especially right now, the message is not always a grand gesture of pain, of suffering. The message is just about existence. Loud, joyful, precise, unapologetic existence. Sometimes the most political act isn't about confrontation, it's about presence. Here's the part we don't say loud or often enough. It's not on people of colour, it's not on disenfranchised people to fix these moments for everybody else. If you were one of these white content creators or one of these white publications, and I'm sure there weren't that many, but if you were one of those with power, reach, safety and insulation, and maybe if you sat at home also waiting for that moment too, sitting there waiting for a symbolic gesture from Bad Bunny that would have placed him in maybe some danger, maybe a precarious position, maybe you should be the one making the statement. Maybe you should be looking to people like you to suffer with that labour. The labour doesn't belong to him. The urgency people felt to assign meaning to that handoff wasn't about the performance lacking something. The performance lacked nothing. It was about who we expect to carry the weight. This performance, this masterpiece of a performance, trusted the audience, trusted the craft, let the meaning slide in quietly like a blade you don't feel until it's already there. Now, I'm sure there were illusions. I'm sure there were cultural subtleties in that performance that I'm simply not going to fully understand, which is why it's important to repost and uplift the Latin content creators who will tell you far more about the meaning than I ever could. The uncomfortable truth about what went wrong with Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance is that nothing went wrong. It was culturally important and technically flawless. Those are the performances that will last. I'm still, even now, the morning after, still feeling the weight of it.